All right, so get ready because we're about to take a deep dive into something pretty wild.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's called Virtuous Ethical Quantum Philosophy,
Oh,
or VEQP for short.
catchy.
Yeah. And it's basically exploring this idea that, like, our ethical choices, the decisions we make about right and wrong, they might actually have an impact on the quantum world.
Whoa.
I know, right? And that in turn could shape, like, the very fabric of reality that we experience.
So, like, our choices are literally shaping reality.
That's what VEQP is suggesting. And we've got a whole bunch of sources here. Some are, kind of introductory. Others get really complex and theoretical.
Sounds like a good mix. So where do we even start with something like this?
Well, I think it helps to have a basic understanding of some key quantum mechanics concepts, right? Just to kind of set the stage.
Yeah, okay, that makes
Like,
sense.
what is superposition? What is entanglement? What's wave function collapse? All that good stuff.
Right. Because those are pretty crucial to understanding how VEQP even works.
Exactly. So could you give us a quick rundown of those concepts?
Sure. Let's start with superposition. So basically, this is the idea that a quantum particle, like an electron or a photon, it can exist in multiple states at the same time. Like, it's not just one thing or the other, it's both until it's measured.
Okay, I think I've heard of that. Like, it's both a wave and a particle.
Yeah, exactly. Or like that thought experiment with Schrodinger's cat.
Oh, right, where the cat's both alive and dead until you open the box.
Exactly. So applying that to VEQP, we're talking about the possibility that maybe in an ethical dilemma, there could be multiple right choices existing at the same time until we make a decision.
Whoa, that's a trippy thought. So our choices are kind of like these quantum particles existing in this fuzzy state of possibility.
That's what VEQP is proposing.
Yeah.
It's a pretty radical departure from the traditional view of right and wrong as fixed absolute concepts.
Okay, that's a lot to process. What about entanglement?
So entanglement, now that's where things get really weird.
Okay, hit me.
It's like you have two particles, and they're linked together in a way that even if you separate them by a huge distance, like light years even, what you do to one particle instantly affects the other.
Whoa, that's like faster than the speed of light.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest mysteries in quantum mechanics, this spooky action at a distance, as Einstein called it.
Right, right. So how does that tie into VEQP?
Well, if our actions are somehow entangled, like these particles, then maybe our choices have ripple effects that go way beyond what we can see or imagine.
Like our choices are impacting others even if we're not physically near them.
Exactly. It's like that analogy of a spider web. One of the sources uses that. Every action, every choice creates vibrations that travel across the entire web, affecting everything connected to it.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture.
Yeah.
So how does the observer effect fit into all of this?
So the observer effect, that's another key piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Basically, it's the idea that the act of observing a quantum system actually influences its behavior.
So just by looking at something, we're changing it.
Well, in the quantum world, yeah. The act of measurement, of observing a particle, forces it to choose a definite state. It collapses the wave function.
Right, right. The cat's either alive or dead once you open the box. So is VEQP suggesting that our conscious choices, our ethical deliberations, are kind of like making those quantum measurements?
Yes, precisely. It's saying that maybe when we grapple with an ethical dilemma, weigh the options and make a choice, we're collapsing the wave function of possibilities, not just for ourselves, but for the entire interconnected system.
So it's like our choices are shaping reality, not just passively observing it.
That's the core idea. And this is where things start to get really interesting, because VEQP goes on to draw on ideas from other fields, like alchemy, to explore the potential of ethical choices to transform both ourselves and the world around us.
Alchemy. Now that's a whole other rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, it gets deep.
I'm intrigued. Let's talk more about that alchemy connection.
Welcome back. Now, before we get too far down this rabbit hole of VEQP and alchemy, maybe we should, step back for a second and look at how all of this, like how VEQP changes the way we think about ethics in general. Like, what even is right and wrong in this context?
Yeah, that's a good point. We've been talking about all this quantum stuff, but how does VEQP actually challenge, like, our existing ideas about morality?
Right, right. So traditionally, a lot of ethical theories, they're all about like fixed rules.
Yeah, like don't steal, don't lie, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But VEQP, it kind of throws all that out the window and suggests that maybe, just maybe, morality's, well, it's more fluid. more dynamic. It's influenced by our choices and how those choices impact everything else.
Okay, so instead of a set of rules, it's more about understanding the consequences of our actions, like how they ripple out and affect the whole system.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, imagine playing a game of chess, but the chessboard is alive, and every move you make, it changes the board itself.
Whoa, that's a pretty intense game of chess. So we need to think about not just like the immediate outcome of our actions, but the long-term, like the ripple effects.
Yes. And that brings us to one of the sources that talks about this idea of, get this, quantum immortality.
Quantum immortality. Wait, is that like the idea that we could live forever in some other dimension?
It's a pretty out there concept, right?
Yeah.
But basically, it's exploring the possibility that consciousness might continue in alternate realities even after death in this one.
Whoa. So like even if we don't see the full impact of our choices in this lifetime, they could still be rippling out into other realities.
It's a mind bender for sure.
Yeah.
But it raises some really interesting questions about the scope of our responsibility, Like if our choices have these far-reaching consequences, does that mean we need to be even more careful, more virtuous, even if we don't see the immediate results?
That's a heavy thought. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about how all of this VEQP stuff might affect like the real world. We're seeing all these advancements in quantum technologies, quantum computers, quantum communication. Where does VEQP fit into that?
That's a really, really important question. Because if our choices are influencing quantum systems, like VEQP suggests, then we can't just ignore the ethical implications of these new technologies.
It's like we're developing all these powerful tools, but we don't have an ethical framework for how to use them responsibly.
Exactly. Think about quantum computers. They have the potential to, like, revolutionize everything, solve problems we couldn't even dream of solving before.
But they could also be used for, some pretty scary stuff.
Like what kind of stuff?
Well, breaking encryption, for one thing, or developing new weapons. Stuff like that.
So it's like with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Exactly. VEQP is saying we need to be thinking about these ethical issues now before it's too late.
Right. So we need like a quantum ethics council or something?
Some of the sources actually propose that, like a group of experts who can help guide the development and use of these quantum technologies in a responsible way.
That's pretty wild. A whole new field of ethics emerging. It is. And it's not just about regulating technology. It's about recognizing that our choices have consequences at a deeper level than we ever imagined.
It's a lot to wrap our heads around. Okay, so we talked about how VEQP draws on alchemy. I'm still curious about that connection.
Yeah, right. So alchemy, at its core, it's about transformation, like taking something ordinary, lead, for example, and transforming it into something precious, like gold.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection. So are we saying that with our ethical choices, we're kind of like alchemists refining reality itself?
That's a good way to think about it. But VEQP goes even further and asks, what exactly are we refining? Like, what is the gold we're trying to create through our actions?
That's a really good question. What do the sources say about that?
Well, several of them suggest that ultimately the goal of VEQP is the refinement of consciousness itself.
So it's not just about changing the world around us, but also about changing ourselves, our own awareness.
Exactly. It's like by grappling with these ethical dilemmas, by making these virtuous choices, we're not just shaping the external world, but also our own inner world, our understanding of who we are and our place in the universe.
Okay, so it's like a feedback loop. Like as we refine our own consciousness, that change is reflected in the external world and vice versa.
Yeah, it's like a dance. And this connects to the idea of quantum entanglement, right?
Mm-hmm.
If our consciousness is entangled with the quantum world, then maybe the transformations we undergo internally are mirrored in the transformations happening externally.
That's a pretty beautiful thought. Okay, so where does the idea of collective consciousness fit into all of this?
Now, that's where things get even more interesting. VEQP draws on this idea that, okay, if individual consciousness can influence the quantum world, then maybe a collective consciousness, like a shared awareness or intention, could have an even bigger impact.
So it's like amplifying the signal. Like the more people who are aligned in their intentions, the more powerful the effect.
Exactly. And some sources even speculate that this collective consciousness could be like the driving force behind the evolution of the universe itself, guiding it toward greater complexity, harmony, beauty.
Whoa, okay, that's a pretty mind-blowing concept. So we're not just passengers on this cosmic journey, but actually like co-creators.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to this question of free will.
Mm-hmm.
If our choices are shaping the quantum world, and that world is all about probabilities, then what does that mean for our ability to choose freely?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Are we really in control, or are we just puppets of some grand quantum design?
It's a tough one. And VEQP doesn't pretend to have all the answers. But one source, it proposes this really interesting idea. Maybe free will exists not in spite of quantum mechanics, but because of it.
Wait, so instead of limiting our choices, quantum mechanics actually gives us more freedom.
That's the idea. Like, maybe the probabilistic nature of the quantum world actually provides the space for free will to operate. And our conscious choices, our ethical deliberations, maybe those are the force that collapses those probabilities into actual outcomes.
So we're not just at the mercy of fate, but actually shaping our own destinies. And maybe even the destiny of the universe.
That's the empowering message of VEQP. It's a call to action, to step into our roles as conscious creators and recognize the profound impact of our choices.
Okay, but all this can seem pretty abstract. Where do we even start to apply these ideas in our everyday lives?
You're right, it can seem overwhelming, but VEQP has practical implications too. One area where it can really make a difference is in conflict resolution and peace building.
Oh, interesting. How does that work?
Well, traditional approaches to conflict resolution, they often focus on compromise, right, or negotiation. But VEQP suggests a more transformative approach, one that recognizes the interconnectedness of everyone involved.
So instead of just trying to divide things up fairly, we're looking for solutions that benefit everyone.
Exactly. By understanding that our actions are entangled, that what we do affects others in ways we might not even realize, we can approach conflict with more empathy, more compassion.
So it's about shifting from a win-lose mentality to a win-win approach.
Precisely. And that doesn't mean ignoring your own needs or values. It just means understanding that your well-being is connected to the well-being of others.
That's a powerful message, especially in today's world where there's so much conflict and division.
It is. And VEQP offers a different way of looking at things, a more hopeful way. It suggests that by embracing the interconnectedness revealed by quantum mechanics, by aligning our choices with our highest ethical aspirations, we can create a more peaceful, just beautiful world for everyone.
This is a lot to take in, but I'm starting to see how VEQP gives us a new way of understanding ourselves, our relationships, our place in the universe.
And that's really just the beginning. There's so much more to explore. We haven't even touched on the implications for, consciousness, the nature of reality, the evolution of the universe.
We've covered a lot of ground already, from quantum mechanics to ethics to the potential of collective consciousness. It's been quite a journey.
It has. But as we delve deeper into these implications of VEQP, I think it's important to remember that these aren't just theoretical concepts. They're about recognizing the power of our choices, the responsibility we have, and the potential we all have to shape a more ethical and meaningful reality.
You're absolutely right. It's about taking these ideas and putting them into practice, making choices that reflect our highest values, and creating a world that embodies our best selves. Wow, we've really been diving deep into this VEQP stuff.
We have. It's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it? All these connections between quantum mechanics, ethics, consciousness.
It is. And one of the things that's really striking me is that VEQP doesn't try to give us all the answers, It's more about asking the right questions.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of opens up these whole new ways of thinking about who we are, our place in the universe, the nature of reality itself.
Right. And speaking of big questions, one that keeps popping up in the sources is this idea of purpose. If our choices are shaping reality at this fundamental level, what's the point of it all? What's the ultimate purpose of this whole, cosmic dance between consciousness and the quantum world?
That's a question that's been around for, probably as long as humans have been around, right?
Yeah.
And VEQP doesn't claim to have the definitive answer, but it does offer some interesting perspectives.
Yeah.
One source suggests that maybe the whole purpose of this interplay between consciousness and the quantum world is, the evolution of consciousness itself.
So it's not just about shaping the external world, but also about refining and expanding our own awareness, our own understanding of things.
Exactly. It's we're all playing this cosmic game of self-discovery.
Yeah.
And the choices we make, they're like the building blocks, helping us create this more expansive, more enlightened reality.
Okay, I like that analogy. So as we evolve individually, we're also contributing to the evolution of the collective consciousness.
Right. And that in turn influences the trajectory of the universe itself. Pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, it is. But it also, raises the stakes a bit, doesn't it? If we have that much influence, we better be using it wisely.
That's the challenge. And the opportunity. VEQP is calling for a pretty radical shift in perspective. We need to move away from seeing ourselves as these separate individuals and recognize that we're all interconnected with each other and with the universe as a whole.
So less me-focused, more we-focused.
Exactly. And that means cultivating certain virtues like empathy, compassion, wisdom, courage. Those aren't just like nice-sounding words. They're qualities that can help us navigate this complex quantum reality we're a part of.
So VQP is like, it's a new kind of ethics, right? One that's based on this understanding of interconnectedness and the quantum world.
Yeah. And it's not about blindly following rules. It's about developing a deeper awareness of how our actions impact everything else and making choices that are aligned with our highest aspirations, both for ourselves and for the world around us.
It's challenging, for sure, but also really hopeful. Like, we have the power to create something better.
We do. We can create a more just, more compassionate, more meaningful reality. And that brings us back to the heart of VEQP, right? Virtuous Ethical Quantum Philosophy. It's a reminder that our choices matter, in a big way. Our decisions, they ripple out into the fabric of reality, shaping the world we experience and the future we create.
It's a call to action, to be more conscious, more deliberate, more responsible in the choices we make.
It is. And as we wrap up this deep dive into VEQP, I want to leave you with this question. If your choices are shaping the quantum world, what kind of reality are you creating?
That's a great question, one that we all need to ask ourselves. And as we go forward, let's remember that we're not just passive observers, we're active participants, co-creating the reality we experience.
Absolutely. So choose wisely, choose with compassion, and choose with a deep awareness of the interconnectedness of all things.
Well said. That's a great note to end on. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Because there's always more to discover.